strategist here at Opsgility, and spent a lot of time working on Azure and on our cloud programs that we have. I was a Microsoft employee for about 15 years. I worked as a consultant and support early in my career. Also worked in the Windows product group and the media room product group, and have been working with Azure for a very, very long time. So left the company a few years ago. Now I'm an Azure MVP, and mostly what I do is go around the world speaking with people, teaching people all over the world about Azure and about the cloud. So really excited to be here. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm on it pretty much 24 hours a day if I'm not asleep. So dan@opsgility.com, or you can check me out at Delta Dan on Twitter. So that's at Delta Dan. So let's go ahead and jump in. And why should you learn this thing, right? I mean, that's probably a no-brainer in some senses, but for one particular reason, it's for your career, right? I mean, showing drive and initiative, and demonstrating mastery in the product, that sort of thing, set you apart from your peers, right? I mean, everyone these days needs an edge, and recognition inside and outside of Microsoft. All those things can help your career, and really, at the end of the day, learning the cloud is going to secure your future. There's nothing more important than having up-to-date skills, and also having the confidence that you can do this work. And this really is the next generation of IT, right? I mean, we're all in this together. If you've been around for a while, it might be quite a transition for you over to the cloud. So showing that you're a leader, that sort of thing. And frankly, at the end of the day, and the reason why I chose green for this slide is it's all about the cash, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're all in this to take care of ourselves and our families, and make a difference. So, if you know the cloud and you're certified in Azure, it's a pretty big deal. Now, Azure is huge, and one of the big things that I get asked a lot is where to start, right? There's so many different things in Azure that it can be, sort of daunting to figure out, where do I start? What do I do? And so, this is pretty much what I tell people universally. What I tell them is start with what you know. If you're an infrastructure person, start with the infrastructure side. Start with the networks and the VMs and that sort of thing. If you're a dev, start with a dev. If you're a person that does a lot of work with web apps and that sort of thing, and then let the certifications be your compass to get this done, to learn this stuff. It's not hard to learn Azure. It just takes time. Things are just different. They're called different things, the way you wire stuff up together, that sort of thing. But before you know it, if you focus on what you know and you learn from there, you'll be knocking things off pretty quick and be working and doing well with Azure. So let's talk about the certifications and updates. And Microsoft has kind of had a tough go of it, to be honest with you, starting off with certifications. The original certification for Microsoft for Azure was an MCSD, which was very confusing for a lot of infrastructure people, because when IaaS for Azure came out, people are like, well, this is a developer certification. And frankly, even the developers, when they would go and look at the test exam objections, they see all this thing for virtual machines. They're like, what the heck? What is this? And so a few months ago, Microsoft went back, and we've been giving a lot of feedback too here at Opsgility to Microsoft Learning, because we actually even write exam questions and that sort of thing, and write books for them. They wanted to know what they should do, and it's pretty nice where they landed. So on the infrastructure side, there's really three core types of certifications that you can get from Microsoft that are specifically about cloud and about Azure. So the first two are the MCSA, and the A, by the way, has changed, so it's no longer administrator, it's associate now. You got the MCSA Cloud Platform, and then the MCSA Linux on Azure, which is an interesting one we'll talk about in a few minutes. And then they've retained this MCSE, so the Solutions Expert is how that is. It used to be engineer, now it's expert, for Cloud Platform and infrastructure. And those are the main Azure or kind of cloud certifications, if you will, if you're an infrastructure person. Now on the development side, we end up with two MCSAs, which is really confusing if your brain says administrator every time you see MCSA, but remember it's associate now. So MCSA Web Applications, MCSA Universal Windows Platform. And those lead up to a MCSD, or a solutions developer, called App builder. So let's take a look first at the infrastructure certs. The infrastructure certifications, as I mentioned, start out with the MCSA cloud platform. And by the way, when you earn these now, you can get acclaim badges, which is a popular website that people are really jumping on, and Microsoft has started to add these badges out there for you to sort of validate what you know. But on this MCSA cloud platform, effectively what you're going to do is you need to pass 2 exams. So, these 2 exams here at Opsgility, we have these, these 5 or these options kind of nailed for you. I'm going to show that in a little bit later. But really what you have to do is just take 2 of these. If you take 2 of these, you will get this MCSA, and this puts you on the path towards that MCSE we were talking about. And actually, you can use some of these for the developer as well. But we'll check out that here in a few minutes. So the first 3 are kind of the exams that everyone knows if you've been fooling around or thinking about getting Azure certified. So that's the 532, 33, and 34 exams. So the first one being developing, the 33 is the infrastructure exam, is how most people term it. And the 34 is kind of a survey of architecting across all of the different pieces in Azure. Now, they did make available a couple of cloud exams late in the year, late in 2016. So we've got the cloud data platforms and the big data analytics solutions. So really, you can miss and match. You can take any of these exams if you already, have one down, like maybe you've already taken 533. You can choose from one of the others, and you'll have this nice certification. And it's really great to have a cloud certification on your resume these days. People are, hiring managers and recruiters are starting to pick up on these new names because people that have these, because there's not quite as many, are getting their resumes plucked out because folks are trying to hire for cloud. Now the next one is Linux on Azure, which is, once again, this is Microsoft and Linux. It's cats and dogs living together, which thing these days, where Microsoft actually partnered up with the Linux Foundation and built this certification. And if you have some open source chops and you want to get into Azure and have the certification, this one's fairly unique. So what we've got here is one choice as far as the Azure test. You've got to take the infrastructure exam, so the 533, and then if you join the Linux Foundation, you can then take the Linux Foundation Certified System Administrator, which is just only one test over there as well. This is more of a complex simulation type of exam. If you've ever checked that out, you can go look up the Linux Foundation, Google them or something. But pretty much what you have to do is sit effectively at a virtual machine and use a bunch of commands and kind of a use case without any help. So and you can do that either from a Fedora background or a Debian background if you're into Linux sort of thing. So both of those lead up to this cloud platform, MCSE. And so to earn this certification, you have to have one of those 2 MCSEs, or actually Microsoft is accepting the Windows Server Solutions Associates exams as well, or certifications as well. So you could take either of those Azure MCSAs, or if you have an active Windows Server 2012, or if you get the new Windows Server 2016, you can leverage those towards your MCSE cloud platform and infrastructure. So if you have any of these certifications, that qualifies you for the MCSE once you pass 2 of these following exams. So, obviously you can't double up. So you can't take, like, if you already took, let's say, 533 and 534 for your MCSA, cloud platform, you can't use that. So you'd have to choose 2 extra out of those main 5 Azure tests that we have as options today. So you'd have to, choose two other ones basically. Now on the second group here, this is kind of an interesting group. The first exam there, the Securing Windows Server 2016, is actually a brand new exam that hasn't been out for very long. The 70-744. This is a new exam that's just recently come out, and it focuses on some of the improvements in security that Microsoft has made in Hyper-V. So it focuses heavily on like shielded VMs and just-in-time administration and that sort of thing. So it's a pretty interesting exam. To be honest with you, if you're doing a lot of Hyper-V and you're going to be upgraded to 2016, it's a good exam to just study for a take because it's so focused on the new security features, which is top of mind, of course, these days. Now, the 70-413 and 414 are updated exams that have been around for a while that focus on, the more complex feature set in Windows, right? So, this is more about, things like, certificate services or, ADFS, things like that that are, really on kind of the upper spectrum of, Windows Server administration. Although sometimes that can be frustrating because if you're not, very good in those areas, it might just be, really hard to take. So another test might be an option for you. If you're a great system center person or have done a lot of work with private cloud or VMM, that sort of thing, the 70-246 or 70-247 are two great exams that are very kind of in that world. So they're more in the system center world of products like System Center Configuration Manager or System Center Operation Manager, and even the Service Manager, which is kind of the Microsoft ITIL-based trouble ticket or Microsoft Operation Framework type of exam. So, these are all the different options that you have as kind of that extra 2 exams. So if you think about it, it's actually pretty fair what Microsoft has done. If you can take 4 exams now and get an MCSE. In the past, it was 5. So it's a pretty nice update, especially in terms of cloud platform. So, and I would encourage you to look at if you've been in the Microsoft world for a while and you've taken a lot of tests, go and look at what you've taken in the past and see how you can get this, because a lot of people I've talked to, they were only, say, 1 test away, right? So, you might just need to take 1 extra Azure exam or one of these other exams, and you can get a really fresh, brand new certification for your resume, which is a pretty nice thing considering how hard it is to stand out in a world of automated hiring and that sort of thing. So now that we've covered the infrastructure exams, let's take a quick look at the development certs. So we've got the MCSA web applications, and this follows the same mode, right? So we've got the kind of 2 exams that you have to pass. Here it's not very there's not a lot to choose from though, so you've got to take these 2 exams in order to get this one. Program in HTML5 with JavaScript and custom style sheets, 70-480. This is sort of a bread and butter type of skill set for any modern web developers. And then ASP.NET MVC web apps 70-486. Once again, this is kind of a bread and butter type of exam if you're a Microsoft developer that's developing apps to run on .NET. Now, what's interesting about these is just the simple fact that if you are a developer and you're thinking about getting into Azure, the one nice thing is that everything that's in these courses and learning, sort of the objectives and how to do this stuff, and then ultimately getting certified, you're going to be able to take those development skills and apply them across the entire Microsoft stack, right? So anything from on-prem VMs, running web applications, out to Azure, public cloud, and then when we get Azure Stack, they're going to work there as well, right? So whether it's virtual machines, PaaS, and that sort of thing. So if you're a Microsoft-based developer and you're looking to kind of brush up on your skills and get one of the certifications, this is a great one to to help you to learn those skills, as well as check a tick box on your yearly evaluation. Now, this next one is a different option, a very different world than that, right? And this is the MCSA for Universal Windows Platform. And Universal Windows Platform, or UWP as it's known, this is focused on those applications that can run across the Microsoft ecosystem. Microsoft is really pushing these applications hard a couple of years ago, and they continue to focus on them, and it's an important part of their developer story. So if you're into developing mobile apps, that sort of thing, professional C# developer that, or aspiring to be, these are good exams because they can help you to focus in on what are the core competencies that this type of developer is going to be expected to know right? And these applications obviously, or these skills are going to translate great to, writing applications that are going to run across many devices, as well as potentially run in Azure. So, once again, not a lot of options. You really just have to sort of take it or leave it in terms of, you want this certification or you're interested in it. Now, these lead up to the MCSD app builder that we talked about. And the app builder is the, kind of top tier on the developer side. Now, to earn this certification, basically, you've got to have one of those two. So the two we just talked about, either the MCSA for web applications or the MCSA for the Universal Windows Platform. Once you've achieved that, then you need to pass only one more exam. So this MCSD is back to 3. If you remember before, the MCSD for Azure was only 3 exams, but those exams were so complex and there was so much in them, to some people it felt like 6 exams because hardly anybody could pass them when they first came out. So, this is a little bit more reasonable. And these are the ones that you have to choose from. So you'll recognize 70-532 as developing Microsoft Azure solutions. And if you've already taken that test, then really you just have to kind of go backwards and get the other MCSAs, and then you'll achieve this certification. But if we look down the left-hand side, we've got developing Azure Web Services. We've got a couple of SharePoint options, as well as a UWP option. To kind of round out that. The exams on the right-hand side really are focused more on kind of DevOps skills on the Microsoft platform. So, administrating Visual Studio Team Foundation Server, or TFS as it's known, with the 70-496. Doing testing with Visual Studio Team Test, 70-497. Insanely great class, right? I used to work in Microsoft in a performance testing lab, and learning how to use Visual Studio Team Test along with visualstudio.com for those of you that are in performance testing your applications. Really, really awesome stuff to learn how to scale your applications, and also great skills to integrate with Azure Application Insights. And then at the last one, but certainly not the least, if your bosses are pushing on the continuous delivery, continuous integration, DevOps kind of thing, but you're a Microsoft shop, we've got this delivering continuous value with Visual Studio ALM. So all about application lifecycle management. Now, last but not least, how the heck do we get certified in these, right? So what we've got here is just a couple minutes to talk about exam prep. I mean, obviously, everyone has their own sort of way to get ready for the exams and feel comfortable rocking in there. And I wanted to highlight for you the 532, 33, and 34 courses here, just to kind of respect time. But those seem to be the focus for most people when they're in Azure. Now, these exams are exactly like all the other Microsoft exams. You have to go through Pearson VUE around the world, and you can either go and sit for the test at a center, or they actually do these remote now if you have a webcam and you can kind of follow their instructions. Now the tests, straight out of the barrel, or kind of list price is 165 US. We can here at Opsgility, we can get those cheaper for you. We can get them for $99. So if you want to buy them from us, just let us know. Now the format's 150 minutes, and it has a lot of different pieces to it. So let's spend a minute on this. We've got, in 150 minutes, it's a long time to sit for an exam. So come hydrated and be ready to really, kind of dive in and make this thing happen for yourself. You're going to have the test, a section for feedback if you feel like you want to provide feedback to Microsoft, which feedback is a Microsoft code word for what's bad, and then a survey that you can take. Now let's talk about this multiple choice format in the case study for these exams. Now Microsoft has really gone heavily in this direction of the case studies, and the case studies are they can be long. First of all, that's one thing for sure. And what a case study means is you sit and you read a business situation. So, Microsoft will give you this situation, and you have to evaluate and understand what a customer or, a pretend business, usually it's called Kintoso, right? That's the funny fake name that everyone's used to hearing. And in that, what you're going to do, you're going to have to try to understand what the customer's needs are, what your company's needs are, and then provide answers based on what those questions might be. And it's kind of a contained section. So now my advice to you here, and I've actually been guilty of this myself, the testing center almost universally will give you some sort of a notepad or, something that you have to give back to them. Usually it's kind of like an eraser board or something with a dry erase marker. And I've been known myself I take a lot of notes, so I would, I'll write all this stuff down about the case study, and then I'll go and read the 5 questions, and they almost have nothing to do with the case study. And so, my advice to you is patiently read the case study so you get an idea of what's going on with the company and what the situation is. But then very carefully read the questions. The questions are the questions. Okay, and the case study is just background information. So keep that in mind, that what's in the case study is meant to feed your knowledge about the customer when they ask you a question. So, keep that in mind, but you need to answer the question. That's the important part, okay? Now, the other thing is the case study sections of the test, and I want you to really pay attention to this, okay? The case study sections of these tests are isolated in themselves. You read the case study, and then you'll probably have maybe 5 questions. Normally, when you take a Microsoft exam, and if you've taken them in the past, you'll know this, you can tick a little box that says review. And when you get to the end of the questions, you can go back and read all the ones that you marked as review, right? I'm sure you've probably done this. Now, with these case studies, you can only review the questions inside the case study when you're doing the case study. When you get to the end and you say go, that's it. You can't go back, okay? And that's a big thing to remember. You're not going to have the opportunity to review those questions. Now, you can, as you're doing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions with the case study, you can say review, and then when you get to, number 5, it'll take you back to 2 or 3 or whatever you marked as review, but it's all going to be right there. You can't think about it for an hour in the back of your mind while you're answering all these other questions, okay? So those case studies are isolated to themselves. So keep that in mind, and like I said, read slowly. The other thing is that you will have lots of different types of questions types, meaning, multiple choice and drag and drop. Sometimes you can put text in. So just pay attention, take your time. You've studied for this, you're ready for it. If you don't pass it, I hope it's not the end of the world for you. Probably isn't, but just enjoy the time, and take it in stride. Now, the day of the test, you got to get there 15 minutes early at least, and I don't know how many times I've been. It seems like every time I go to take an exam, I see somebody who's getting told that they can't take an exam because they don't have 2 forms of ID. So make sure you bring 2 forms of ID. And make sure in your country you understand what ID is acceptable. In the U.S., what I tell people, if you have a passport, bring your driver's license and your passport, right? That's the best 2 things that you can bring. But you can talk to Pearson VUE about what's acceptable and read their website. Now, if you need to cancel, something comes up, life happens, that sort of thing, it's usually work, right? Typically you have 24 hours notice, but make sure in your country that you don't lose $165 or $99, whatever it is, by canceling too late. Okay. The other thing I tell people is you know yourself best of when you're going to be at your top form. But I will tell you that, a lot of studies say, and this includes like, children and SAT exams and things like that, the majority of the best scores typically come in the morning. Okay. Now, that's probably not true if you stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning studying and then you got an exam at 9 a.m., right? Some people like to cram. But, I think that, for me and for most people, taking an exam in the morning is a good thing. You tend to be a little bit more awake, right? So, make sure that, you schedule your tests that meets your needs, and also try to make sure that life doesn't happen, right? So the earlier in the morning your exam, typically the less you're going to get some page that says some server's down and all of a sudden you're missing your exam and losing your money, right? So, make sure that you have the time to go and take that test and put your best foot forward. You've been studying all this time. And the other thing is try not to make this a life and death situation for you guys, okay? If your boss says you've got 6 months to get certified in Azure, don't wait the last 3 weeks to go take the tests, right? Space them out, put it on a calendar, what day you're going to take the test. And usually what I do for myself, if I say, well, I want to get an exam done by like, July or something, I'll tell myself I'll go and schedule that exam. There's nothing like putting down the money and saying, on this date, I'm going no matter what, right? It's kind of like people that train for marathons or something, The marathon date is whatever date it is, and if you're ready or you're not ready, the marathon's still going to happen, right? So, think of it like that. Now, the other thing is, and other bit of exam is, on our website, on Opsgility.com, we have these exam blueprints, and the exam blueprints are there to help you. So you can go and watch those, and they'll tell you what's going to be on the exam, and one of the experts here at Opsgility is going to kind of walk you through it, as well as give you some links to some of the objectives and extra things to read to get prepped for the exam. Now let's walk through a few of these, the Azure tests, and let's take a look at what they kind of look like. So the 532. This exam is really all about people that, frankly are developers, right? So, you've been, implementing, programming, that sort of thing on Azure. And I can't stress to you enough how much you need to actually use Azure before you take these tests. If you go and try to read a bunch of stuff, I'm sure somebody can read books and watch our videos hand in hand and maybe go pass a test, but, it's going to be really hard. These tests are not easy. They're doable, but they're not easy. And the more that you've seen the platform, the better off that you will be. Now, the other side they say on this is you need to be proficient with development tools, techniques, that sort of thing, and have built solutions. And you can see kind of a breakdown of the objectives. So designing and implementing paths, 25%, design and implement storage and data, managing identity and networks, and then the dreaded one for developers, creating and managing, create and manage as a resource manager virtual machines. So this is one where a lot of our developer friends are like, I've never had to build machines before in my life, but this is the cloud. Right? And we talked about earlier about how everything has changed, and that's really true. Developers are out there building their own virtual machines and networks and wiring things up, doing things that they haven't done in the past. So, that's why Microsoft is putting this forward as, hey, this is one of those things you need to learn. So keep that in mind. Things have really changed, and in DevOps world, that's even more so true. So, so keep that in mind. All right. Now on 533, a few more objectives, right? We've got, designing and deploying ARM templates and implementing virtual networks and implement Active Directory, storage. We've got our virtual machines again, along with the PaaS services. Now the one here that people really get tripped up on, if you're a what I would call a tried and true IT guy or gal like me, on my Twitter feed, I think I call myself an infrastructure guy living in cloudy times. There's some things here that are very, very new, like the infrastructure as code. Designing your infrastructure using JSON templates, using Visual Studio to roll out your VMs. Seems crazy talk, right? And it's definitely a new sort of thing to learn. So keep a lookout for that, and use our tools in our labs, because we're going to take you through it here and help you get certified. Now, this exam is really for people that have been doing infrastructure in Azure. This is not for the faint of heart. You need to really have a lot of experience in order to, demonstrate that you know what you're doing. Azure is so big, I talked about this earlier, that it's really hard to kind of jump in and not have some experience along with the tests and the videos and that sort of thing. So if you've been implementing and monitoring the cloud and building hybrid solutions and that sort of thing, this is kind of a good exam. And if you're an infrastructure person, this is your bread and butter test to make sure that you're ready to build solutions out in the public cloud in Azure. And the last but not least, I would say, is definitely the architecting solutions. A lot of people are very interested in this exam, and I will tell you it's probably um, the hardest exam in the sense that it's very wide. There's so many technologies in Azure that you kind of need to know and understand, and that's represented across, you see this, 15, 15, 20, 20, 10 sort of makeup of the exam. Um, Now, if we look across there and we talk about these, we've got architecting compute, we've got ARM networking, securing resources, all of the different types of security for all the different types of resources, a lot of things that you need to learn, data and storage access, that sort of thing, designing advanced applications. We're talking anything from SQL Azure to HD Insight for Hadoop-based workloads to mobile application, API applications, that sort of thing. So just a very wide type of role. And really exam is designed for those that are interested or have a role where you're providing solution design. A lot of people that have like a title like solution architect or something like that, or if you're on kind of like an engineering team that sets the direction or policy or the enterprise roadmap for your company, you're going to be a great candidate for this one. And the kind of the big thing is knowing a lot of the features and the capabilities and being able to say, well, in this situation I would use web apps, but in this situation I would use VMs, right? That sort of thing. And that's what the exam is really looking for. And you can just see by the number of words right here that this one's pretty heavy. So candidates who take this, you should be able to look at infrastructure, platforms, functional, operational deployments across all life cycles. Now, don't be scared. I don't want to say that you're scared of this exam. It's just deep. And when I mean deep, I actually mean wide. To be honest with you, it's so wide and deep. It can be kind of daunting. We see a lot of people that need to take this one twice to get it right. And there's a lot of case studies on this exam, as you would imagine, because it's about architecting. And architecting is first, obviously, about gathering the requirements from your customer, right, or for the solution at hand. So with that said, I wanted to do a couple of quick demos. So I'm going to pop out of here and over into my web browser. And the first thing I want to show you is the courses, right, or the test kind of exams, if you will. Web pages, and these are fantastic. So I highly recommend that you go and read this. You go and look at, like, this is the 532. And if you take a look here, what you'll see is the first thing is Microsoft is very open and honest. They give you exactly what is going to be on these tests. So they're really giving you, everything you need to know. But wow, look at what you need to know. I mean, it is a lot of stuff. I mean, these two alone, anything from, virtual machines in ARM to virtual networks to monitoring all of that. We move down here in data and storage. We've got storage, blobs, and files. We've got queues, SQL database, document DB, Azure Search. So, just those things right there are huge. Now, what I always do, and this is something I've done since, I think I got my first, Microsoft Certified Professional in, I think, maybe 1996, something like that. And this is a trick. I don't know how I decided to do it, but I guess back then this is just what I decided to do. I would go to this website and print this out. And I know printing is kind of old school, and maybe you could do this in OneNote or Evernote or whatever you want to use, but I still print it out. I print it out, and I will literally, like with a pen or a highlighter, I'll go and mark each one of these things, and I will look at each piece, and I will make sure that I have studied, done a lab, done something, right, for each piece of these. I've read documentation or I've done something either in the past or, go find a lab or something so that I've seen every single piece. Like if you come into this exam and you haven't looked at scaling using scale sets, you'll probably fail because there's probably 3 or 4 questions about it in there. It seems like whatever we're the weakest on is what we always get the questions for. I guess that's kind of Murphy's Law or something. So that's what I do. I go through and I literally, like with a pen or a marker, I'll mark each one of these and make sure that I've read every single piece. And if I've done that, usually I'm pretty good on the exam. I'll at least get close. You can't always pass on the first time, right? So don't feel bad if you don't, because these exams are really, really tough. They're much deeper than some of the exams have been in the past, right? So this is a great resource, and they typically also have some other things in here, like maybe practice tests and that sort of thing. What we do find, though, and even Microsoft, Microsoft is one of our best customers. They come to us to help to teach them. What we do find is that our training is probably the best training that there is in the world for Azure. We have very large portions of Microsoft that come and take our training to get certified. Now, if you go to our website, opsgility.com, and you obviously have a login, you can check these out. If we look under Learning Solutions, the first thing I would point you to is All Courses. Now, when you get to All Courses, you're going to need to do some filtering, because clearly it's every single course that we have here at Opsgility, and we've got Azure 365 Dynamics and some fundamental things as well. But if you click under Azure, that's kind of your first pivot. So this is all of the Azure courses. We've got, 114 classes and 80-something labs and, 171 potential hours of labs. So that's really big. So the first thing you want to do is filter down to online. So, we're looking at now the online courses, and look here, we just had a brand new course come out today. Alexandria came out with Understanding Azure DNS and Traffic Manager. I think some people could have used some Traffic Manager and DNS yesterday when there was an issue over at AWS. But anyway, I digress. If you look at these categories, you can go through and do architecture or data developer, that sort of thing. But one of them is certification, right? And that's what we're talking about today. So, you see here we've got 42 Azure courses on, how to get certified, 31 labs, that sort of thing. And then you can look at the individual tracks for the exam that you want to pass. So, we were just talking about 532, that's what I was showing you. So if you do this, now what you've got is you've got everything you need right here to go through and pass this exam, right? So we've got like Introduction to Service Fabric from John Adams. We've got Chris Peachman with Logic Apps, Alex Mang with Cloud Applications, that sort of thing. Paul Burpo is our resident data expert on databases and that sort of thing. And you can go through and use these, and of course, when you click open one of these courses, you can go through and leverage the I'm not signed in, but you can leverage the course profile as well as the labs to get up to speed, on that. Now, let's take a different view, because we have another way to get to that information. If you click on the Learning Solutions again and you click Certification, there's a great way here with these learning paths to help you along. So once again, if I drill in on 532 and I click Find More on this page, then I get this really nice page that helps you. It's sort of got one of these sort of a donut, if you will, of all of the different areas. So if you click on each one of these, it will show you the exams, right? Or I'm sorry, it'll show you the courses that you need to take in order to get up to speed on all the different pieces. So now here was that Introduction to Azure Service Bus course with John Adams. He's one of our premier developer trainers, and John will take you through what it's like to learn Service Bus, right? And the most important thing that you should remember is of course the modules are extremely important. You can watch the videos there, but these labs are so critically important. We talked about the hands-on aspect of Azure. So, if you click through on the labs, what you'll get to, or what you'll get to do is, actually step by step go through and actually work in Azure, right? And this is something that's very different than other companies that are out there that are helping you to get certified. So, here's an actual lab end-to-end where you're in Azure doing real things and learning, without just PowerPoints and that sort of thing, right? So, pretty exciting stuff there, and like I said, if you go to Learning Solutions and Certification, um, you can find different for each of those different exams that are out there, like the 533, the 534, and even the 473. So that's about it for the webinar today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I really encourage you to, go and read about the Microsoft certifications and leverage our website. We also have a Yammer community. If you have questions, feel free to ask. And like I mentioned here, we can get you $99 exam vouchers, which is a heck of a lot cheaper than $165. So let us know on that. You can email sales@opsgility.com, or just, go onto our website. We've got this little kind of cool thing here. You can leave a message for us, and we'll get back to you. I guess that was I Need to Learn the Cloud there. That was her. So you can go out there and ping us, and we'll be more than happy to get you started on your path to cloud greatness in your career. And don't forget the Cloud Sandbox too. That's where you can get into Azure and have the ability to do those labs if you don't have a subscription on your own. So I wanted to say thank you again. Appreciate it, and I hope that you all have a great rest of your day. Take care, from all of us here at Opsgility, and good luck passing those exams, and let us know on Yammer how you did. Take care.